We're talking today about a kind of an interesting album.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the most classically dad rock album we've talked about today, which
Yep.
is it will be interesting to talk about it since we've sort of talked about so many different albums. But I'm excited to dive in with you both today.
So I brought this album to you guys this last week because for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Joel.
And so what we're talking about for the audience is Tom Petty's Full Moon Fever. Great album, classic album, and I brought it to you guys because I don't know do you guys ever listen to an album when you want to like recreate a feeling?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
100%. Yes.
Right. All right. So this is an album that I listen to a lot in the winter because it helps me kind of recreate the feeling of being at like an outdoor musical festival, right? Where it's just like this raw rock and roll. I mean, even like the album cover, like when you look at it, it looks like the poster of a musical festival.
Joel, I think it's interesting what you're talking about albums that you want to recreate something. I am a fall and winter person. I enjoy those seasons immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And there is something summery to this album that doesn't feel genuine to me. There is sort of that sort of warm vibe that feels, and this is just my hot take, feels so manufactured. The hits are great, but there are some elements where it feels like Petty's like, no, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. And it almost feels like he's trying to hit a home run with every single song. And some of them, again, are really, really great, but none of it feels, I will say this, I don't like this album because the Heartbreakers aren't part of it. Yeah. BJ, you being the baby of the group.
Yes. Right.
This album, I can't imagine this album almost seems real to you because you probably know all the hits. Like this album doesn't, there's probably no context for this album, right? Beyond your radio experience.
Well, I'm a big Tom Petty fan. Tom Petty by himself, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers and everything. Yeah. You're right. The hits on this album are fantastic. I mean, they're just like great. Like you're just listening to them and you're just like, well, this is why this song was a hit, you know, and it's still why it's getting so much play even today on classic rock radio. But yeah, there's some songs on this album that I'm just kind of like, boy, I don't know kind of like what he was doing. I feel like this album was him trying to prove that he could go out there on his own, because before it's Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and then it's the Traveling Wilburys, and Tom Petty is part of all of that, obviously front and center with the Heartbreakers. At the Traveling Wilburys, he's surrounded by legends. I mean, like musical legends. And I don't know if at that point I'm putting Tom Petty in the same category as Roy Orbison and George Harrison and Jeff Lynne. Like, you know, maybe now I'm putting him in that conversation, but back then he's the baby of that group.
Yeah.
And this is him, I think, trying to prove, like, look at what I can do on my own. That being said, I feel like Jeff Lynne was a big part of this album.
Oh yeah, he's huge,
huge
on this album.
So it's him wanting to go out there and say, you know what, I'm more than just Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. I am also Tom Petty.